But Madam Deputy Speaker, I rise to give my support to the budget 2020. In doing so, Madam Speaker, I want to begin first with where my minister in the Ministry of Health ended when she addressed some of the persons who were lost in, who have gone to the great beyond. I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, she missed one person, and it is right that I begin there. She missed Dr. Ian Jacobs. Dr. Ian Jacobs, of course, entered the public service in 1974, post office / agriculture. After studies, he was later appointed medical officer in July 1982 and worked with the Ministry of Health until his demise. And he, of course, was departed in 2019. So to his family, we again express our sympathy, and indeed to those with whom he worked. And on behalf of those with whom he worked as well, we express our sympathy. Let me at the outset say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that my phone is usually set for sleep at 10 and to rise at 4. I violate it sometimes by going to sleep later than 10, of course. It happens quite often. And even sometimes I wake before 4, sometimes 3. But 4 is the target I set myself, to be able to get up and at least move the muscles a bit, to be able to get myself fit for the day. So you can imagine at this time of night, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm beginning to feel it is closing in on my time to say good night. However, permit me to, first of all, challenge the fact that member for number 2 seemed to think that she could trust, and she said it in her presentation, casting aspersions, if you will, on members on this side. I just simply want to say to her that before anyone like the member for number 2 can cast aspersions on members on this side, I think she first ought to probate the will of her brother. And if she probates the will of her brother, which will then free resources to help that daughter who went to university and needed financial support, then, Madam Deputy Speaker, she could then speak properly to anyone over on this side to try to reprimand, to try to address issues to do with person's character, trying to impugn, of course, characters of persons, about companies being formed and all that. She first has to demonstrate, in my view, Madam Deputy Speaker, that she has earned the trust first of the people in constituency number 2 and the trust of colleagues in this parliament to be able to take that role or play that part. Because unless and until the will of her brother frees resources for the rest of the family well in need, I will say, Madam Deputy Speaker, she has no right to be casting any aspersions. I should also say, while the leader of the opposition is here, Madam Deputy Speaker, that she has shown already under the previous administration that she has no respect whatsoever for the leadership on the opposition benches, even when that leadership was in government as Prime Minister. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, as Minister of Health, it is clear that the minister, the Prime Minister, has responsibility for determining who is permanent secretary in the Ministry of Health. In fact, Madam Deputy Speaker, at paragraph 79, Article 79 of the Constitution, it refers to the power, the right of the Prime Minister to make appointments of who is permanent secretary. And it is well known, it is clear, that the Honourable Member for number 2, preferred to name the Chief Medical Officer then as Permanent Secretary. But, of course, the Prime Minister, in his wisdom then, chose Prime Minister Skerritt, Permanent Secretary Skerritt, and appointed him as Permanent Secretary. And that is why, Madam Deputy Speaker, when the Unity administration came to office, there was never any trace, never a trace, at least with the Permanent Secretary, who ought properly to be the person to send any submission to Cabinet. There was never any trace of a submission to do with what you describe as the universal health care, to which she referred, because she quite properly or promptly or ridiculously, I believe, ignored the Permanent Secretary at the time and continued on her road with her preference, discarding and disnoticing the leader of the opposition, who was then Prime Minister, and the person he had chosen. And that is why that ministry was so dysfunctional, very dysfunctional, for a time leading up to the last general elections. And so as I rise to give my support to the 2020 budget, I first had to note that, so that the member for number 2 will know that really she has no authority whatsoever to be speaking on such important issues, trying to criticize members on this side of the House. Madam Deputy Speaker, there is no perfect world, no perfect human being on this world, no perfect organization on this world. I will even venture to say you will never ever have a perfect budget or anything else, because it's done by human hands and with human minds. It's not done by the divine. But with all of the imperfections that people might want to claim in any presentation of any budget, especially in the eyes of the opposition, this budget, this 2020 budget, assures us of stability. This 2020 budget assures us of stability. And it is because of that stability why we can speak confidently, Madam Deputy Speaker, confidently about the future with the Team Unity administration. Stability breeds prosperity, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is because of that stability why our nation is now attaining unparalleled levels of growth in this century. Because of that stability. We have shown how to ensure stability with what we have done with crime in this country. Madam Deputy Speaker, it is only a few, in fact, it was dating back into the 1980s that every political campaign, you will see crime as the first order of business of any government or anyone trying to be government or in opposition. It was about crime and how to deal with crime. This government, the Team Unity government, in 4 years has taken crime off the table, making it such an ease to move around in St. Kitts and Nevis. People are more confident of going out at nights and in any area and every area in this country. Before this stability, Madam Deputy Speaker, by 5 o'clock at night, youngsters were already in their house hiding. In fact, some never moved out of the territory from which they were living, afraid to work here or there. But stability, Madam Deputy Speaker, has come because we have rid this country. We have designed a program that has removed crime off of the table. And today, the youngsters in our country, the youngsters are reaping the benefits of the decision to move away from crime and to become productive citizens in our country. Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker, this budget 2020 assures us of inclusion of all in society. It matters not whether you have come here from any Caribbean country or you were born here. While you're here, we have decided to include all in everything that we do. And this budget, Madam Deputy Speaker, assures inclusion for all. Madam Deputy Speaker, it is why when we give $500 per household, we don't pick out whose household it is, whether it's Labour, PAM, UPP, or no PP. It does not matter whether they're from Guy. Once the household income is $3,000 or less, they qualify, Madam Deputy Speaker, because we include all. We include all in our program, Madam Deputy Speaker. But when we decided to do something about those roofing materials that are needed for housing damaged by hurricanes, we don't pick out. As a matter of fact, some people who support me will tell me that other people who don't deserve it get before them, and I have to tell them everybody deserves. Once they need, it belongs to everybody. That's what it is. This budget, Madam Deputy Speaker, 2020, assures us of a hopeful future. A future trending towards zero debt. That is what this budget assures us, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can you imagine, Madam Deputy Speaker, it was only a few short years ago, that we had a government in this country that was taking us down a path that had us number 2 in the world in debt to GDP. Number 2 in the world. And Madam Deputy Speaker, the position of this unity government, recognizing that we were on a path of destruction, structural adjustment, teachers, policemen without being able to get their increment, debt in the country, people losing their deposits that they had with the government. This government, this unity government, in 4 years, has brought us to the point where we are trending towards zero debt, because we're now below 60%, the international threshold for debt to GDP. Madam Deputy Speaker, this budget assures us of a growing middle class, elevating those who are poorest among us. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, we know in 1980, having had a government change and a further abolition of personal income tax, there was a growing middle class in this country that fueled all of the economic growth that we experienced then, which made us number 1 in Latin America and the Caribbean, because we were moving people up the ladder. It was a time when we stopped handing out to people and giving people a hand up. There was a thriving small business association. Everywhere you look around this country, there were small businesses doing quite well. It was ruined in the 20-year experience we had under the previous administration. But during that period, Madam Deputy Speaker, we had more people in the middle class bracket. As a matter of fact, Madam Deputy Speaker, I remember when personal income tax was abolished and the refund of National Provident Fund was done. It was the first time many people knew what a $100 note looked like. There were so many $100 bills across the country that people will call you to buy you a drink rather than beg you for a drink. Not so today, not so 5 years ago. There was a period, Madam Deputy Speaker, when persons would call you and buy you a drink rather than beg you a drink. We have created a culture in the last 20 years before our period where it has gone full circle to the point where people are meeting you and telling you almost repeatedly, let me catch you at 20. Some don't feel like 20 is big enough. They won't catch you at 50. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are creating this budget assures us of a growing middle class, elevating those who are poorest among us. This budget, Madam Deputy Speaker, assures us that our economy will continue to contend as number one in the region. This budget assures us of that. This budget assures us, Madam Deputy Speaker, of continued economic growth. This budget assured us, Madam Deputy Speaker, of digital transformation. This is important to this modern economy, an economy where our young people are focusing on these STEM subjects. Of course, this modern economy, this budget assures us of digital transformation that will help drive the next wave of employment opportunities in our country. This budget, Madam Deputy Speaker, assures us of a robust tourist destination. You heard the Minister of Tourism earlier. As a robust tourist destination, which in 4 years has doubled its cruise passenger arrivals in our federation. That is what this budget assures us of. This budget, Madam Deputy Speaker, assures us that we can provide a responsiveness to the needs of those who are less fortunate than others. We can do that, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we are doing it. Because, as I said before, you know, poverty alleviation was designed for that very purpose. Poverty alleviation was designed to ensure that those, the least among us, those who are less fortunate than most, do get the benefits that can help them to sustain themselves, providing what I will describe as the necessaries, at least food, clothing, and shelter. So stability, Madam Deputy Speaker, inclusion, economic development, these are just some of the outcomes that come from this important budget 2020. If you look around, Madam Deputy Speaker, you will see, you will recognize that 5 years ago, we had a disillusioned young population. They were taking on the challenge of life, only to find unemployment, they're wasting the time. Frustration crippling their young minds. In an age, Madam Deputy Speaker, of advanced technology, St. Kitts and Nevis under the previous administration was slow walking change, slow walking creativity, slow walking on digital transformation. This frustration, Madam Deputy Speaker, turned many of them to a life of crime. Stealing, killing, all kinds of heinous crimes. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are seeking a better economy, and the team unity approach is to embrace and invest in digital transformation, as I said before, to ensure that our economy continues to grow as numero uno in the region. It is why, Madam Deputy Speaker, we welcome our Caribbean brothers. We welcome our Caribbean brothers and sisters who have come to this country legally. We welcome them to contribute as they can to the development of this country. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, as our economy grows and as some of our own people migrate, it opens up a need, a growing need in our own labor force. And it is persons coming from the region, from Guyana, the rest of the region, Santo Domingo, etc. Those persons are welcome to create or to add to our labor force. Because if we do not, Madam Deputy Speaker, it would mean that when development is taking place, especially by those whom we describe as coming from afar with resources, sometimes in suitcases, foreign direct investors, we will be overloaded with persons from those distant lands coming here to carry out their projects. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, earlier I mentioned digital transformation, and I would expect that the Minister of Technology, the Honorable Attorney General himself, that he will expand on that when he comes to make his presentation, and that he will outline the benefits of this transformation strategy. You see, Madam Deputy Speaker, if you take a look at history, at least when I was growing up, what we saw mainly in the economy was about sugar or sugar-based economic development, monocultural development in the country. What I saw then, Madam Deputy Speaker, were people who were what we'll call providing hard labor. You grew up, you went to school, you used to idolize the grab driver and the tractor driver. And even in your play at afternoons, you would make a can cart or a can grab. I'm sure some of my colleagues on this side remember that. And you will go and cut grass and put it in a heap, and you use the grab to take up the grass. That's what we saw. Primarily dominated by what we call hard labor. But then, in the 1980s, there came a change which focused on providing services. It was the development of an era when local persons were investing in hotels. There was Sun and Sands, local. Burdock Beach, local. You name them all across this, about 5 or 6 of them, they were all locally owned by ordinary people who walked the streets with you and who worked with you, invested in such projects. Development began to accelerate, especially in the tourism and hotel industry, by small hotels owned by local people. I remember, of course, there was OTI. Those were local people. People who built that from scratch. Again, you have many of those were local, where local people invested and became entrepreneurs, employing people and contributing to the local economy, especially in the area of tourism. That happened, and so many persons then transformed into service-oriented employment, providing service. Indeed, you have even those, even in some of our institutions, the banks and so on, there was a sort of a freedom where a person began to show that they could then contribute to more service. Before that, only certain people could work in banks. You know? But service became the order of the day. And also, entrepreneurial spirit grew as persons had more money in their pockets. And that is why we had a strong middle class, small business association. That's what happened. That has disappeared. It disappeared. In fact, Madam Deputy Speaker, there were persons who had 3 and 4 stores up to 1995, and by the year 2000, under the previous administration, they had none. You understand, Madam Deputy Speaker? And I won't call names in this parliament, but we know that as a fact. My own case, Madam Deputy Speaker. You want to know, Madam Deputy Speaker? I was working in the service industry at a place called National Caribbean Insurance. The government of the day had no reason to terminate my services, but they did. Now they will claim they didn't do it because it was not at their hand. But when someone pays you 3 months pay in lieu of notice until you go home, that's what it is. And that's what happened to me in 1995. 3 months pay in lieu of notice suggests to you, well, I don't have any fault in you, or really can't pin you down for anything nefarious or any other kind, but I don't want you. So home I went. And you know what is interesting, Madam Deputy Speaker? When I went home in October of 1995, the honourable member on the other side, the honourable former Prime Minister, member for number 3, who I knew well, mainly because of my wife, of course. Because we didn't go to school together, but I knew of him and I heard of him. The relationship between my wife and this leader of the opposition was so good that my children went to his clinics. My children were treated by him in his clinics. And yet in 1995, when me and my wife stood up to him to say, listen, I have formed a company. The rules say, the regulations suggest to form that company is only $200,000. But we put up $500,000. And yet, the member opposite, as Prime Minister then, in his capacity as Minister of Finance, from where you could get a license to operate, ensured that I did not get a license to operate my company.
With respect, member, you can't, with respect, you cannot be making those kinds of statements. Yes, point of order, impugning that I have been involved in some complicity to deprive him. That is not true. It's not my duty to issue. The technical people, the technocrats, would do what they have to do, and he did not have the sufficient letters of support for him to be granted that license. You can't say that. Please don't. You know it's not so. I met with you. I met with your wife. Don't say that.
I thank the honourable member for clarifying. But you know, now that I'm in government, I know how it goes, right? I know that it goes to these technical people that we talk about. And I know that the final decision comes up to the ministry, to the permanent secretary. And I also know that the minister puts his name on that document.
No recommendation?
Yes, so whatever you might say, you as minister did nothing. And you know, it was so strange.
They come here, call you happy boy.
Yes. and so this is what I feel. And then you can imagine, so here I was now.
Life,
I will never do that. His wife is my cousin, you know. His wife is my cousin.
So I'm making the point, Madam Deputy Speaker, that in those days, he was in his heyday. I'm doing it soft. You know how soft I'm doing it? I'm not punching him that hard, and I'm just doing it softly. You know? I'm just punching. I'm just doing it softly. The truth is, Madam Deputy Speaker, that from October 31st, 1995 to 1996 August, everything was done to frustrate my efforts to work in this country. In fact, Madam Deputy Speaker, I have recordings where they threatened to sell my house. They were going after me to make sure that I'm ruined, while this gentleman was leader and Prime Minister. And on the political platforms of the party that he served, that was the message. But you know, Madam Deputy Speaker, there is a God. You know, it's God that guides everything. And especially now that the honourable member has been converted to Christianity, he knows that there is a God.
He's always been a Christian.
So, but he's now born again, you see. He's now a born again Christian. Now that he's a born again Christian, I'm sure he would like, if he has not repented publicly, I'm sure when he kneels down at home, he repents for some of these things that he has done. Huh? So, Madam Deputy Speaker, in 1996, I began again. You know, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's important to make this point because, you see, one has to look at the frame in which, you know, we are discussing this budget. Because then in 1995, Madam Deputy Speaker, my mortgage went up from 4,006 to 6,003, and I don't have an income. The car I was driving was taken away, and I ain't got no chance. The job I was doing is gone. The job I was hoping to get by doing my own thing is denied. At the time, Madam Deputy Speaker, in 1996. Listen, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm speaking on some of my personal business now. In 1996, at this time, around April, my wife was pregnant with her last child. She spoke to my good Prime Minister, cousin-in-law at the time. Cousin. He spoke to her cousin. Cousin Denzel, she said. Cousin Denzel, she said. You know, my husband has this business he's trying to start. Investing in this business is one friend in New York and another in St. Thomas, both of whom you go by when you travel abroad. So, all right, I'm traveling abroad in April. And I'm going because, you know, I'm going to get, it's time for my baby. And I'm going to give birth to it abroad. Which she did. Oh, don't worry at all. Don't worry. Everything will be all right when you get back. Yes, don't worry. So she gets back after delivering the baby and nothing happened. And she wants to go back. I said, do not go back to him. Don't you ever go back.
That's why you have no company.
You understand? And so, she gets a doggy, yes, she gets a doggy. And so, from there I began again. I'm telling you, Madam Deputy Speaker, between 1996 and at least 2000, paying mortgages that you, with salary you don't even make, was a headache, forcing me, and you know, look, when government in control of things is something else, you know, because they control National Bank too, and these National Bank mortgages, you know. But God, there's a God. I will say no more on that because I want to talk about the budget. What I will say is this. That God put it so, but by the year 2000, things changed. Things changed. And I was able to take my mortgage out of the National Bank and take it out of their hands. That's why today I still live in the home which I worked hard for and built in 1994. Thank God for all of that. There's a good God. I didn't benefit from the first time ownership. No free, nothing from the first time ownership. So I'm saying, I diverted, dear Madam Deputy Speaker, to tell you the circumstances that existed at the time through which individuals had to go just to escape the wrath of the member from number 6 and his team. That's what we had to go through. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, say that again? Well, but let's move forward. And so we realized that people were then providing services. But now, Madam Deputy Speaker, so many persons are graduating at such levels today, especially with technical subjects, that it is time for us to have this transformation that makes people use their brain to make a living. And this is why it is important that I encourage every student to focus on their STEM subjects, science, technology, English, and math, because today's society requires that you adopt and adapt so that you could at least benefit from the transformation, the overall global transformation, which we in St. Kitts and Nevis are embracing with our own digital transformation. I also mentioned earlier, Madam Deputy Speaker, St. Kitts and Nevis as a premier tourist destination. And you've already heard from the Minister of Tourism. And I'm sure, I was not here at the time, but I enjoyed every bit of it, Minister of Tourism. All of the successes that you have achieved, that the whole country has achieved as a result of your stewardship, is properly recorded. Madam Deputy Speaker, there are 4 pivotal decisions, 4 important decisions taken in our history that have contributed to economic growth. And I want to see if I could point them out to you. You may disagree. But when the decision was made in the 1980s to introduce offshore universities in this country, it was a pivotal decision, because that particular decision is contributing significantly to the economic growth in this country. Because the number of persons, number of householders who are built with apartments for rent to students are benefiting big time from that one pivotal decision. That was one. The second one, Madam Deputy Speaker, was the abolition of personal income tax. Well, we know when personal income tax was abolished, though we have other taxes now, that fueled the economic activity that made small business grow. We also know, Madam Deputy Speaker,
Coming back.
it will come back under the Team Unity Administration.
No.
What?
Personal income tax coming back.
Personal income tax coming back from the other side. Yes, I'm sorry I misunderstood your question. They have, because of what they are promising to give, it certainly will trigger personal income tax.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. Absolutely, right?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely. Oh, I thought you said absolutely.
Absolutely not.
They give away everything.
It's coming back under this administration if they ever get back in government again. Madam Deputy Speaker, the other thing that happened,
What do you mean? The country's so bad.
the other thing that happens, Madam Deputy Speaker, that drives economic activity is the development of the Southeast Peninsula Road. The Southeast Peninsula Road is that pivotal decision that is driving economic activity today in our country, because you can now get to Nevis at short intervals. So many boats are traveling between St. Kitts and Nevis as a result of that decision in the 1980s. So you see, there are two decisions in the 1980s under a previous PAM administration that are currently driving economic activity in this country. And yes, Madam Deputy Speaker, the day when PAM decided to invest in a deep water port, that again is contributing significantly to economic activity. Because you heard the Minister of Tourism today speaking about all of these wonderful accolades as a result of the growth of tourism in our country. Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker. So those four things are the major things driving economic activity in St. Kitts. Tell me, Madam Deputy Speaker, what happened in the last 20 years that is driving an economic activity? If they want to claim citizenship investment program, it started in 1984. That again was under the People's Action Movement. And that is a major contributor to economic activity in St. Kitts. So if you look at it holistically, the major decisions made that are fueling economic activity in the country were all done under the previous PAM administration. Nothing happened in the last 20 years under Labour that they could point to and say, we started a program that is driving economic activity. If they have it, point to it and I will greatly, graciously accept. But there's none. There's no such thing. And it will take a team unity government. It is we who will then be able to claim contributions to economic development by whatever we create or design. For example, that matter of the Old Road Bay, the road connecting Old Road to the east. Those are things that will accelerate economic activity, and that will happen under the Team Unity administration. Madam Deputy Speaker, in terms of our responsiveness to the needs of those who are less fortunate, we hold fast to the principle. We hold fast to the principle, Madam Deputy Speaker, of what we have learned from 1 John 3 and verse 17. Madam Deputy Speaker, 1 John 3 and verse 17 says to us, if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, and I'm going to paraphrase, they must show compassion on their brother. And if they don't show compassion on their brother, how can they claim that God's love abides in them? 1 John 3 and verse 17 directs us. And it is by that is what guides some of the fundamental principles and practices of this government. Because we believe that if we have access to the world's goods, like in this case of St. Kitts and Nevis, we have access to all of the tax resources of the country, that we must show compassion on our brother. It is compassion on our brother why we went to the $500 a month. It is compassion on our brother why we went to the house roof repair. It is compassion on our brother why we did the help program. And it is compassion on our brother and sister why we will be the one who will introduce universal health care. Universal health care, Madam Deputy Speaker, It is dated June 2019, properly completed by those whom we contracted to do the work, the University of the West Indies Health Economics Unit. And we have also had subsequently had our actuarial report. We know, Madam Deputy Speaker, what it will take to fully implement universal health. And so we want to carefully go through it and involve all of our stakeholders. And despite the fact that the commission which we had members from every area, and we invited the opposition to also participate, which they did not, but that's all right. I know the member today, member for number 2, claims that she has something on her desk to do with universal health. So it means that in principle, she believes in providing universal health coverage. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have that actual report as well. We know what it's going to cost, but we have to engage our stakeholders in responding and determining when and how to implement it. We are not an autocratic, we're not a dictatorship. We can just say we will do it tomorrow and don't care. But we prefer to engage and consult and involve people in the process. And that is why it has not yet been implemented. It has nothing to do with that the work is not complete. I have shown you here, produced by the UWI since June. But we are deliberate in our approach. We are deliberating, we are consulting, and we will make sure that when we begin, it's not a faulty start. It's a start which ensures that those who are least among us will benefit from the world's goods, according to 1 John 3 and 17. Madam Deputy Speaker, it goes on. Yes, it's online. It's online. I could give you a copy, no problem, but it's online. Okay. It goes on, Mr. Speaker, in verse 18, that same 1 John 3, and verse 17 goes on in verse 18. It says, my little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. And that is what we in Team Unity Administration are doing. We are we are doing this in deed and in truth, not in word and in tongue. It is why I say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we created HELP. It is why, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we did the roof repair. It is why, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we introduced poverty alleviation. And it is why universal health is on the horizon. Mr. Speaker, having listened to the fake epiphany on the other side, I said fake epiphany on the other side. My mind went to a quote from a 19th century philosopher, George Wilhelm Hegel. Hegel is quoted as saying, "The owl of Minerva takes flight after dusk." So what does Hegel really mean? And I want to apply it to the circumstances facing the opposition. Because they had 20 years of daylight and did not learn. And so now that it is dusk, they want to take flight by night. They want to show that they are wiser now. They have risen up. They have understood. So they are, in principle, agreeing with Hegel that they now see the wisdom of all that they have heard from the opposition then, who are now in government. They're now seeing some wisdom. And so Hegel is right. What they don't understand is that they have already had their day. They have already had their day, and they're now experiencing their dusk. Now they're experiencing their dusk. They come into this chamber pretending to be wise, pretending to have learned their lesson. Well, I said to them, they will remain in the dusk. And to use a different analogy, whenever you go to a funeral, Madam Deputy Speaker, after dust to dust is ashes to ashes. That is the message I will have for them. Mr. Speaker, with time, I will return to an analysis of the representations made by those in Parliament. But the good people of Otis, Keon, Keys, Canada Estate, Connery, Harp, Moonbay, Kistadas, Gillards, New Road, Clico Housing, and the Greater St. Peters, including Cedar Grove and Milliken, elected me in 2010. And with a stronger mandate in 2015. They elected me with a resounding margin of 236 votes in 2015. And based on my performance as your representative, my collective contribution to national development, I posit that, pettiness aside, the good people of my constituency will return me resoundingly once more to continue the great work that lay ahead. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, while the opposition members who have been singing the tune for 3 elections, the first one, when I defeated them, it was the leader of the opposition and my representative then, C.J. Clyburn. And they were singing that song, and they lost. And then they came, the leader of the opposition again, and Dr. Jew. And they started singing the song, and they still lost. Now, once, twice, 3 times, who is the fool? Listen, man, we're going to have a third round. And when the third round comes, the same will happen again. You know why? Because you don't see me. The time when you see me is when you reach the finish line, but I don't there. That's what happens. So all the time you ain't see me. Oh, he ain't doing nothing. You know? But when you reach the finish line, I'll be there. You'll come meet me there. That's what happens. Because you see, you don't see me. You know, let me put it to you this way. An old African proverb says,
yes.
If you want to go fast,
Go alone.
go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's why you ain't seen me, because we're together. I'm not running ahead of anybody. We're just together. And so as we are together, man, listen, you know the story with the tortoise and the hare? Full speed and finish last. That's how it is. I will be at the finish line when you get there. If you really want that guy to be in Parliament, you better resign and give him your seat.
I like that. We're not doing differently. Why he don't come against you and let you go down there?
Oh yeah, come up and run against me. Come up and run
Let
against me.
you up there.
And let you run down there.
I wish I could have done.
Why you can't do it? Why?
I can't do it.
Bradshaw was from St. Paul's and ran in Central Bastille.
I wish I could have.
Don't you know that?
I'm so confident.
Oh, okay. All right, sir. Okay. I turn to my ministries.
You know, you want to hear me more, you know?
Yeah. I turn to my ministries, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I will give a quick summary and then do a little detail later. But first of all, Madam Deputy Speaker, some highlights. Because agriculture, one of the subjects of which one of the ministries that I have gone through a period of diversification over the last 4 years. We have introduced, for example, Madam Deputy Speaker, a new farmer registration system with lower fees. And added to that, we forgave all of the farmers that had land rent owing. That's what we did, to be able to bring everybody current and give them new registration. Of course, I will describe that as giving them a fresh start.
Yes.
It's a fresh start that they received when we waived what they were owing. Of course, we have launched a real-time weather data collection platform with prediction and forecasting mechanisms to mitigate against adverse conditions. This has been supported by, of course, the Taiwanese. We have continued with our soil analysis so that we could determine where is best to plant this crop or that crop. We introduced the first ever online web portal in support of the digital transformation that we're going through, so that those who have goods to sell can open a store on the government network. And the Ministry of Agriculture also has that ability to market whatever it can on that network. So an individual farmer who plants tomatoes in Sandy Point can have a store on the government portal where you can go, anyone can go and access the information and know, well, there are tomatoes available in Sandy Point, rather than to say, I cannot get any tomatoes. That is what we have done so that a farmer can sell his goods online. We have provided hurricane relief after the 2017 hurricanes, $1.3 million. Okay. We have provided hurricane relief in excess of $1.3 million to many farmers. In fact, apart from the clearing of land and the plowing of land, last year, I think it was close to December, we gave out $1.1 million. The lowest any farmer got was $2,500, and the most they got was $7,000 in assistance to the people in the farming community, because we believe in the fundamental principle that if you have the world's goods and sees your brother in need, show compassion on your brother. Madam Deputy Speaker, the staff at the abattoir was sent for training in Nevis. 2 persons had previously been trained. They had been trained, Madam Deputy Speaker, in procuring ham, sausages, bacon, and patties. But the person on the St. Kitts end, for some reason, has disappeared. And so we had to retrain. And one guy who was trained, they were trained in Jamaica. And the one who was trained in Jamaica, who is now in Nevis, loves his craft so much. He is the best curer of hams in St. Kitts. If you want a ham, you have to go to Nevis. And so those who are here with us in St. Kitts had been across to Nevis for training. And they can now carry out the same task, maybe not as good, but certainly good enough for us to consume. We, of course, had a monkey summit to determine what really is the population of these monkeys that we have and the damages that are being inflicted on farmers and other areas. You see, if you knew your science as you say you do, you would know that 95%, 98% is correct.
Come on, man.
But if you knew your science, you would know that. So you don't know your science.
I challenge you to that.
You don't know your science.
We are not, well, maybe you are 98%.
I didn't say that. I said genetically. Understand the difference. If you're a scientist, you will know that.
Is that so?
I rated you better than that, you know. You know I had you rated better than that.
That is not true.
Genetically, the pig is close to us.
I am not asking about who is closer. I'm telling you genetically what we are.
But it is not.
So I'm not bothered with that. And if he denies that, it shows that his science is lacking.
Absolutely not.
Madam Deputy Speaker,
It is not so. We're mixing up.
we have a formal introduction of the agricultural science in the primary schools, using syllabus developed locally, foster collaboration and strong working relationship with departments of agriculture in Nevis, expand and upgrade the agro-processing unit that produces value-added products. Of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have the building where the agro-processing is being done, which is one of the things we really should have completed in 2019, but for technical difficulties, it has not. And it is important for me to mention it because that perhaps is the only building around this area which still has asbestos roofing, and that asbestos has to be removed. That asbestos roofing has to be removed because people are working in those conditions, and asbestos, as we have read many times, and I'm sure the leader of the opposition will agree, asbestos is dangerous to health. And so we'll have to get that done. Of course, price support for a number of good services. We have done what we could, Madam Deputy Speaker, to provide support to farmers with batical, with feed, with fencing wire, fertilizer, and more. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'll go a little bit more into the batical as I continue. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, what have we been doing further in agriculture? We have a quarantine unit. A quarantine unit is a sub-program of the Department of Agriculture that focuses mainly on agricultural health and food safety matters, with the fundamental role of preventing the introduction and spread of plant, pest in St. Kitts. You hear what I say, Madam Deputy Speaker? Plant pest in St. Kitts. It is why I have a serious problem with the Honorable Leader of the Opposition when he brought persons in here, or when he was associated with persons who came in here that brought in hemp, which were not approved by the Department of Agriculture to be in this country, because of the risk of spreading pests in St. Kitts and Nevis. If only for that alone, I have a problem with what was done then. And the Honorable Leader of the Opposition has not yet, to my mind, been contrite enough to admit that he may have advised them, if he did, wrongly. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think as a budding Christian or practicing Christian, he ought properly to really
be more contrite.
Yes, just a little bit more contrite, you know. I will live with that. The quarantine unit is responsible for the implementation and monitoring of sanitary and phytosanitary measures as it relates to plant health. Consequently, the unit seeks to regulate the movement of plants, plant products, and related articles within and across the borders of St. Kitts and Nevis, with the regulation that we have as monitoring tools, allowing for inspection, certification, and prohibition of entry, treatment, and destruction of plants, products, and regulated articles. So when this act was done, and the persons who were so charged were being, abusive, they must understand that what we were doing was protecting our own phytosanitary systems in St. Kitts, protecting the products that we produce from being affected by any pest and inadvertently coming into the Federation. Madam Deputy Speaker, owing to the increased global trade, owing to the increased travel, transport and tourism, and regional and international obligations, the quarantine services offered by the Department of Agriculture in St. Kitts play a critically important role in safeguarding plant health, facilitating trade, and protecting the environment. Madam Deputy Speaker, St. Kitts and Nevis has one species of fruit flies, the West Indian fruit fly. It attacks mangoes. It attacks improved guavas, wax apple, carambola, and all plums. There are several fruit flies in the region, but there are only two recent introductions which have caused much concern, namely the carambola fruit fly from the South American region, and the med fly, which attacks over 250 fruit types. In order to ensure that our country remain free of these two pests in particular, a surveillance program has been put in place by the ministry. Fruit fly traps were established at ports of entry, the Deepwater Port, the Bastia Ferry Terminal, the Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw International Airport, and Port Zante, to monitor for the Mediterranean fruit fly. The traps were serviced every 2 weeks. In January of 2018, traps servicing at key sites around the island were discontinued due to the absence of the medfly. But to date, the exotic food fresh fly has not been detected. The fruit fly traps were established from January 2018. And I dare say, without going further into that aspect, Madam Deputy Speaker, indicate that at the terminal, the ferry terminal, where people usually hang out and drink beers, there's a tree at the back where we put the traps. It is like a magnet if there's any importation of the fly from any country. And so the service at the airport and other ports, it's like a magnet. They are drawn towards that particular trap. And so it will therefore be trapped. You can identify and take necessary action. But there are individuals who go there and destroy the traps. They don't understand the importance of those traps. It is an important agricultural surveillance method to prevent our nation state from being ridden by pests which are not supposed to be in this country if we properly surveil. And so those persons, when you go on those trees and you see the trap, it's a yellow thing. Don't destroy them, for goodness sakes. you're helping to ruin the health of our crops, because those flies are dangerous. They go and lay their eggs in these fruits. The eggs laid in the fruits then turn into what you call these little worms. You go on some of the trees you see, the improved guava, and so you realize that they have worms in them because we could have been contaminated by the fruit fly. I'm urging the public, those of you who go to these areas near our ports and you see things like those which are maybe not so familiar to you, please don't interfere with them. You're only adding a headache to this country's crop production that could be contaminated by such pests. The unit, our ambulatory program, responded to 1,317 ambulatory cases in 2017, and can be attributed to the fact that we were very active and still are. But in 2018, we had a challenge. We had a challenge in 2018, especially following what was then the hurricanes of 2017. And I need to give you some background as to why we had this challenge, because at that point, apart from the fact that we have farmers who do not tether the animals roam freely, and by contamination with other animals get infected with this tick. Then, apart from that, we in 2018 did have a problem. We had a problem because when we ordered our Betical from Costa Rica, the usual place, the agent to Trinidad, for some reason for almost 8 months, was not able to deliver Betical on time. So we had a period where we were really low on Betical and could not service as we ought. And so during 2018, we had a challenge. So let me read quickly. In 1980, the amblyomma tick was introduced in St. Kitts primarily because there was, well, as a result of it, tick became an endemic and would have wiped out the livestock population if it was not for the Caribbean amblyomma production camp that was sponsored by a group of international organizations along with government. The program ended in 2007, and the supply of Betical, the arcade used to kill the tick, became inconsistent due to the lack of reliable sources of funds to purchase the product. As a result, there was a steady increase in the prevalence of the tick and the dermatophilosis, and as a result, the dermatophilosis raged. And in 2012, as a result of a similar project, we were able to again procure 1,500 liters of Betical that lasted for over 5 years. The Betical was then sold at $50 per bottle, although you heard this morning or earlier today that the Betical was free, that they used to sell it free. That's not true. They used to sell it for $50 at the time, less than half the cost price. The cost price was about $100 per liter. In 2017, however, due to the effects of 2 major hurricanes, and when you have hurricanes, Madam Deputy Speaker, whatever is in the soil, resting, hibernating, whatever it's doing, usually, look, water is life. When there's plenty of water, then life springs. Just look around, you see how all the grass is growing fully around the place, just because you're having some serious, showers of rain. The same happened with the tick. If it's lying in the ground, which I understand it could live there for 3 years, then the water, once you start getting rainwater, then they rise up. And then those animals which are untethered, traveling around that come infected, infect others. So if people take care of the animals properly, we can avoid the proliferation of the tick and avoid this serious disease. But it's not happening because people do not tether the animals properly. However, the long and short of it, and I will say this, because I believe time is going by very quickly. The long and short of it is, we have made a decision that for the first half of 2020, and we are projecting to go down to the end of 2020, all animals in the Federation will be treated free of cost by this government. We will make sure that they are treated with the Betical, And if I can just quickly turn to what I have here. We know, for example, that for the period March 2018 to August 2019, 631 cattle apparently were infected, or at least affected, was reported, 291 sheep, 308 goats. And as a result, people have been crying out about the loss of animals. Some lost little, some lost plenty. And we as a government, we have decided to assist all livestock farmers by supplying Betical to them. They will not be charged for any treatment of their animals with Betical and antibiotics. We're starting first to look at the first 6 months, and then we look at the other 6 months. Added to that, I am making a presentation to my cabinet to consider whether it is important to make any other compensation to those who may have had loss as a result of the tick which has caused this disease. I also, Madam Deputy Speaker, have responsibility for the ministry, for the Department of the Cooperatives. And Department of Cooperatives is a really very active department. They have implemented a week of activities. The activities include broadcasting, done and church services, talks at schools, award ceremonies, cooperative fair. Very active department. They have done work on the building, the cooperatives building, which was transformed a year or two ago. 3 new rooms to accommodate officers, new bathroom facilities, storage areas were built as part of the capital project to expand the building. A new galvalume roof was installed on the original section of the building to correct leaks that were caused by the hurricanes. I must say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we did have an incident there this year that is still very troubling to me, in that apparently water leaked through the roof and did damage to one of the light bulbs and subsequently damaged one of the employees. But I can say that this week we have begun to try and repair the entire building, those leaks and the flooring that has been damaged as a result. So those of you who work there can work in safety. Health and safety, I know the Minister of Labour is very concerned about, especially in the workplace where government employ people. So we're making sure, Minister Amri, that we work on that building so that we will find no charge against us when and if you do visit that building to look at its health. They have done work on a primary school quiz. Very, very, very important quiz, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I attended 2 of those quizzes so far, total 3. And quite frankly, the questions that these kids can answer are stumping me. Our kids are very, very bright young people. They know almost everything to know about these cooperatives. And it is important to note that, the schools compete very, very keenly and do a very excellent job of dealing with the quiz. They have created, of course, online banking software for junior savings cooperatives. The idea is that students could enroll in the junior savings cooperatives in our schools. They can bank money on a weekly basis. Traditionally, the banking transactions are recorded manually in a book called Banking Register. The system was time-consuming and highly prone to errors. The use of the banking software will eliminate time-consuming manual calculations and the risk of related errors. Of course, the software creates the opportunity for us to look at implementing graduating junior savings corp members, students from primary schools to high schools with their savings. In other words, because they leave the primary school, you don't have to stop. You can have things transferred into what is the senior schools. So it is encouraging thrift. And let me pause a minute, Madam Deputy Speaker, to indicate to this country that I think one of our responsibilities as individuals, especially those who are head of the family, to exercise thrift in our affairs. Too many of us in our families, Madam Deputy Speaker, are drawn into the kind of purchases that provide the highest interest rate. Higher purchase, for example, is like 20 and so %, rather than to borrow the same $5,000 and pay 6% we hire purchase at 20%. That's not good economic sense. Why would we be paying 20% when we could borrow the money and pay 6%? Let us exercise thrift in our affairs. We need to be thrifty. We were taught that from the very good book, the Bible. Because Pharaoh, when Pharaoh learned that the dream he had meant 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine, Pharaoh built more barns and stored up 20% of the grain. It is an exercise in thrift. Put aside when the going is good for when the going gets bad. Too many of us spend everything we get every weekend. Too many of us spend everything down 4th Street. We need to put aside for ourselves. How do you pay yourself, Madam Deputy Speaker? You work. I'm sure Dr. Douglas, the member for number 3, don't do that. He works, he gets his pay. Number 6. He works, he gets his money. He might pay hospital, he might pay TDC, he might pay somebody in Dubai, I don't know. But certainly, I'm sure he puts aside something for himself. Isn't that right, my honorable leader? But you must exhibit that kind of thing for people in the country. You have to demonstrate that. You see? And so while Dr. Douglas will do that, so too is the person with the least income. If you have got $300, try putting aside something. There will come a day in your life when you will need to turn to those resources rather than to be looking for a handout. And we all as leaders should encourage people to do that, to be thrifty. Exercise thrift in conducting your affairs. And I appeal.
Things are hard.
No, listen.
Things are really hard, trust me.
I am telling you, Dr. Douglas, and you know, I'm telling you, member for number 6, and you know, that when Friday afternoon comes, most people buy in a round for 10 people. A lot of youngsters, 10 people. Why you have to buy a round for 10 people? Huh? Oh man, you're not downtown, man. You're not downtown. You went downtown the other day, but you didn't see that because you went in and hid out in what the place name? In the little store there, where they were selling patties and so. Where your picture was taken in the privacy of the place with the patty. What do you call the place? They have a place over Philip there like it. The Trinidad didn't own it. Forget what it was. Yeah, rituals. You went to rituals to hide, man. So you didn't see what happening on the street.
What?
On the street. On the street. So I am suggesting again, leaders not only in politics, leaders not only in the church, leaders, whatever leader you are, encourage persons who are associated with you to exercise thrift. It is an important thing to do because there comes a day you were born the most helpless species in the world. The horse, the foal gets up and gallops in a few hours. You took 8 or 9 months before you crawled. Very helpless. And yes, you were born in such helpless state. But then you grew up to become the super animal, the super, among all animals, you're the super. You're the one that yes, everything. Yet when we get to that stage where we are so wise, much wiser. I mean, even monkeys, you know. I like to talk about monkeys, so I'll do it again. I'll go there. Even when they chew, they put up something in the cut and carry it for the children. They put aside. They put aside. So my point is, exercise thrift in everything that you do. Encourage the persons to say. I heard from a gentleman one time, I think it was an Alder Bailey, and I still remember what he said. Too many of us, he said, borrow money we don't have, to buy things we don't need, to impress people who don't like us. And it's not a good thing. And in the end, you end up with debt that you can't pay. So, let us all encourage our people, those of us who think, even if you think their earnings are small, encourage them. It's a good practice to be thrifty. The cooperative movement encourages that. Encourages that in our schools, encouraging that in all of our cooperative movements. Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker, in late 2018, Forest Agricultural Women Cooperative procured a wine filtering machine. That wine filtering machine is used to remove sediments from the wine. The Department of Cooperatives organized a training session to equip members of the women's group to use the filtration machine, so that we are we have learned how to cure and treat our wine so that it is clean. Of course, the St. Kitts Agro-Processing Cooperative was successful in getting the green season on the shelf of Hotspot Value Mart in 2019. So in 2019, what our persons have produced as products, green seasoning, is now on the shelf of Hotspot downtown. The Gideon Force, the members of Gideon Force, which is perhaps the only cooperative movement that does all organic planting, no chemicals whatsoever. They completed the construction of a reservoir on their farm for water harvesting with the support of Jeff. Of course, Gideon Force also made a bold move and convened a Mayfair and an open day in the farm in Virchals, which I attended. And I listened as they touted the success stories planting organically. The Sandy Point Agricultural Cooperatives have also been very active and all shepherded by the Department of Cooperatives. The cooperatives, Madam Deputy Speaker, has been very, very active. If I don't speed up, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'll run out of time and don't cover all my grounds.
You have a half an hour.
I have more than a half an hour.
Right.
But then, of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have the Department of Environment. The Department of Environment was created, of course, by an act of Parliament in 1996. And they have been pretty active themselves. They have carried out anti-littering campaign awareness programs on the impact of littering on the environment. These programs are designed to train people, to educate people about the importance of not littering. Too many of our people are driving along in cars on the street and throwing empty bottles out wantonly or empty containers. We need to stop littering and doing damage to our environment. And I want to encourage the people of this country to consider that whenever you're driving along, if you have empty containers, please keep them in your vehicle and store them in a place where they can be properly disposed of, because they add nothing to our environment and obviously does damage. So the Department of Environment is also concerned about sand mining. And we are proposing that over the next 5 years, the exploration of off-island alternate sources for both gut and beach sand. That is our proposition. And of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, we're looking for collaboration with the construction industry and transporters of aggregate to identify acceptable solutions to keep aggregates affordable. We cannot afford for aggregates that are used in construction to be increased and create an industry that is costing more to build homes, especially low-income homes in our country. At the moment, Madam Deputy Speaker, they are considering the ban on plastics. We know that the international community has over the last 2 years been lobbying for countries to adopt a ban on single-use plastics. Plastics have been identified as an environmental hazard because most of them do not degrade, but instead break up into tiny pieces that ultimately enter our food chain. So we're looking forward in the next 5 years, Madam Deputy Speaker, to use a phased approach to ban single-use plastic. This would allow local companies to retrofit and retool their companies to adapt to the ban. Madam Deputy Speaker, I wouldn't go through all this. I have some more important things to come later on. Of course, this department covers things like resilience, building resilience, soil conservation, and they do a great work. And without shortchanging them to make them feel that I have not covered the areas well in Parliament, I can tell you, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the prospects for job opportunities as a result of the work of the Department of Environment look good. For example, we have dedicated some areas as parks, national parks. National parks will provide visitors with opportunities to connect with the land, and also socio-economic and cultural benefits will be provided as a result. The overall goal of a forest ranger who will work in that under that program is to create a welcoming and safe environment for visitors to ensure that the facilities and the natural environment is preserved. You remember, Madam Deputy Speaker, some time ago they said somebody fell under the crater. But that's what they say anyway. It is this kind of work that we will be expecting our nationals to be able to guide persons properly so that we can avoid incidents and accidents, so that persons will not have to relive poor experiences when they come to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We expect in these areas to be able to employ botanists and wildlife specialists, because we have done some work, of course, to determine what species we do have in our areas. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, study of the animals and other wildlife and how they interact with the ecosystem will be the work or part of the work by these botanists and wildlife specialists. We expect archaeologists and historical preservationists to be working as well. We expect, of course, to have ground personnel to be able to work through these forests, through these terrains, through these parks, so that we can have other persons. In other words, I'm saying, Madam Deputy Speaker, that employment opportunities for young people, for those who may even have been disposed to a life of crime, will be plentiful, because we see that in Liamiga West, in Foyes, there is an opportunity over the next 5 years for at least 18 forest rangers and some administrative personnel to be able to work in that particular area. In Wingfield, Old Road Wingfield, which is an important area, we see that in the next 5 years we should need at least 22 rangers there, 5 administrative and managerial personnel, 4 park grounds personnel, a botanist and a wildlife specialist, an archaeologist and a preservationist. There is opportunity ahead of us for employment in the natural environment, in our forests, in our parks, in where we have preserved as areas, for example, an area such as the Keys Biosphere, where we expect that individuals will be able to find employment. Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to go quickly to fisheries, because the fisheries sector is of social and economic importance to St. Kitts and Nevis. It is vital. It is a vital source of food. It is a vital source of employment. It is a vital source of revenue in our federation. It is estimated that more than 1,000 fishers operate as artisanal fishers, in which they have many challenges in addressing emerging realities of the industry. It is clear that the key to successful development of our fishing industry is through education and training. Recognizing the need for change, the Department of Marine Resources initiated a basic fisherman training course in 2017. Madam Deputy Speaker, the goal of the BFTC is to develop the necessary competencies and skills in the fisheries sector to enable fishers to optimize the potential of fishing industry. The course that was held has been designed to include all of the critical areas necessary for survival in the industry. I want to turn quickly, Madam Deputy Speaker. We introduced in 2015, on the 6th of July 2015, the Port State Measures Agreement. It was adopted by the FAO conference in 2009. The main purpose of the FAO agreement on port state measures is to prevent, deter, and eliminate illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. We adopted it in 2015 and have been steadfastly applying those principles which have been outlined in the measures to be able to ensure that persons do not engage in illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. It may, Madam Deputy Speaker, there are poachers in our region, people who come in your waters from different lands, especially some of them in South America, come over here to fish in your waters. And we have to find the technology and the methods to be able to prevent them from poaching, because it means that they are depleting our fish stocks. So we are working to do that. We, of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, during the period, introduced a bandsaw and walk-in freezer in the Old Road Fishery Complex between the period 2015 to 2019. We procured a freezer truck a truck that will help to transport fish from one point to the next, so that areas in, say, Deep Bay, which has no storage facility, can then be able to sell to the Department of Fisheries, and it will be transported in the freezer truck. So we procured that. We have procured 2 fishing vessels. One is FV Transformation and FV Defender. Of course, Madam Speaker, we have acquired new fishing measures. We have acquired new fishing gear, and we have acted to provide conservation, management, development, and sustainable use of fisheries, aquaculture, and marine resources in St. Christopher and Nevis. What we have further done, on August 18, 2016, the government of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis declared St. Kitts and Nevis marine managed area. The area is defined by the 2-mile radius of seawater around St. Kitts and Nevis coastline, including the Monkey Shoals area. This St. Kitts and Nevis Marine Management Area has been proposed since the late 1980s. Substantial work was completed only by 2010. And of course, it is since the Team Unity administration is in office that we've been able to bring into focus and adopt the area we call the Marine Management Area. Madam Deputy Speaker, there's quite a lot here, and I am concerned because I want to get to things in my constituency. We introduced, Madam Deputy Speaker, a vessel monitoring system. Why did we do that? If you recall, Madam Deputy Speaker, some time ago, a fishing boat somewhere off Deep Bay, 2 guys went out fishing, and because of the sargassum seaweed, I am advised one of the engines got stuck. And in trying to free that engine that had stalled, a wave came and knocked these 2 fishermen overboard. But one of the engines was still punting away. So while they had been overboard, the boat kept going and going and going. And in the efforts to swim and catch that boat, they could not and did not. And they were not able to catch that boat. So when they determined that they will swim back to shore, one of them perished. We also know that later on, there were 2 guys, one of them a very good friend of mine we call Finney, who we don't even know what has happened to them. I think it was sometime early last year, late 2018. They just disappeared at sea. And we also know that there was an incident where a tourist ship had bumped into one of our fishing vessels outside there. So what we have done, we have decided, you know what? We need to do this for 2 reasons. One, for the safety of the fishermen, we provide all of them with a monitoring system on their vessel, so that at all times, anyone from shore monitoring will know where they are. I think it was over 300. Let me see if I have the number here. But they were all the fishermen in St. Kitts and Nevis who do the trade by boats. Right? Let me see, for some reason the number is not here. The point, though, is that the government paid for it totally. There was no charge to the fishermen. So that when a fisherman leaves shore, he turns on his equipment. You can follow the path. It is tracked and saved by the monitoring system on shore. So you know if he goes left or right, or he didn't go at all. You can know if he gone to look fish or gone to look something else. So we are monitoring, and it's not, that is one thing, to monitor for maybe policing purposes. But the other reason really is that in the unlikely event something happens out there, they can easily signal from this monitoring system to be able to tell those on shore exactly where they are. So we have tried to improve the safety of the fishermen by introducing monitoring systems at the fisheries complex. I will not, Madam Deputy Speaker, go into the catch for this year. I think at a subsequent time we could look at that. What I would like to do, though, is to look at Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker, I appreciate. With your permission, I will take another half an hour if it's given to me.
That the Speaker receives another 30 minutes. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, one of the ministries, the Ministry of Health, is supervised by myself and Minister Phipps. I tend to focus more on the programs for solid waste to be able to take this country, solid waste and this country, down a particular path, Madam Deputy Speaker, where we will educate everyone about the importance of, in support especially of the environmental issues which we're concerned with, to encourage persons to be careful with their garbage and to dispose of them properly. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, solid waste embarked on a program last year. It was around Independence last year. The purpose of the program was to encourage all householders to take whatever debris they had, old refrigerators, old stores, whatever they had lying in grass and grass verges nearby and around their homes, and put them in the dumpster. And we successfully, over a period of about 6 weeks, removed tons and tons of metal from across the country. They were then delivered on site at the landfill. But we went further, Madam Deputy Speaker. We engaged an organization from Miami to come and to remove from the landfill all of those metal, the scraps of metal, bale them out. They call it baling. To bale it out and ship it to Miami to be recycled. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, it started sometime this year, could be around April, could be about, I don't remember the exact date right now. But the truth is, Madam Deputy Speaker, would you believe that in this short time, they were able to move 7,800,000 pounds of scrap metal. We had all that scrap metal lying around the country and on our landfill. Useless scrap. In that quantity, there were 4,200 derelict vehicles. Vehicles that people had just abandoned around the country. Stuck in all kind of ravines, in guts, everywhere. Abandoned vehicles, 4,200 of them have been removed from this place, bailed out, and shipped to Miami. And you know what, Madam Deputy Speaker? We are not paying for the service. But whatever profits is turned from it, we will then get our benefits from it. And the reason, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that we can't just look at, well, they're going to make money off the scrap metal. We also have to think of our health concerns. Because the truth is, those derelict vehicles in the countryside, providing a vehicle for where water settles and mosquitoes to breed, the risk of the spread of things like dengue and Zika and chikungunya and Guillain-Barré disease, very dangerous diseases, would be prevalent if we do not remove them. So there's a huge health benefit from having those derelict vehicles moved from wherever they are abandoned across the country, taken to the landfill, where they are baled and sent out of the country. And we have been successful in doing that. Let me just repeat the numbers again. We have removed 4,200 vehicles, derelict vehicles, from the country, taking them off the streets. And there's much more work to be done still. It is equivalent to 7,800,000 pounds of scrap metal shipped out of the country, cleaning up the place. So our activity in health, in fostering better health in the country, has been seen in the work, the significant work carried out by those who are employed at solid waste. Madam Deputy Speaker, it might please you to know, and I know it will please the country to know, that with all of what we have done in bailing out this material, in all of what we have done in removing garbage from around the country using the dumpsters and our trucks, Solid waste has still turned a surplus, a net surplus in 2018 of $2.8 million, $2,830,000. It is a tremendous performance by the organization with all of the work that they've had to do in 2018. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, in our efforts to ensure that plastic bottles are not strewn all over, that your waste disposal is done efficiently, the government has made a decision. The decision of the government is that through 2020, every household, bar none, will be outfitted with a waste bin to to facilitate the disposal of waste that will reach the landfill. We have embarked on this program. We have divided up the work. Solid waste is not doing all the work. We have about 4 or 5 people contracted just collecting waste. And collecting waste at your home twice per week. It used to be once per week, it's now twice. And yet, Madam Deputy Speaker, the performance of the corporation is an excellent one. So we'll embark on that waste bin project. Everyone will know. And like a team unity government has always done, no one will be picking out. Whether you Labour, PAM, UPP, or no PP, as the Prime Minister does say, you will be entitled to get one of those waste bins. And that is our project for 2020. And Madam Deputy Speaker, the second thing that solid waste will embark on in 2020 is to push towards a waste-to-energy project. And our preliminary work has suggested that we should be able to provide up to 5 megs to the grill, to the plant, as I understand it. And it is likely, the preliminary work suggests, it will be somewhere in the vicinity of 18 to 20 cents per kilo, or per unit, I think it is. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, the prospects are good. And what is important about that, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that that waste-to-energy project, if it comes on stream as we plan, will serve to remove all of the debris at the landfill and help us to avoid having to find another cell. Because another cell would mean serious expenditure. But if this program is successful, we will not have the need for another cell. That is another project commission targeted the board to pursue as one of its missions in 2020. I've also asked them, Madam Deputy Speaker, to take on the challenge, present me with a paper, present me with a proposal that I can take to Cabinet so that we can take over the drain sweeping and drain cleaning in Bastia, in particular, and the rest of the country. Because the drain sweeping, the drain cleaning in the Bastia Valley is not to the standard which I would like as Minister of Health. And it is not to the standard many people in the country would like. Newtown, my colleague minister from Newtown, from East Bastia, he's always, should I say petrified? He said, just want it clean. So I will use it. He understands the situation. It is affecting him, I know. And I've asked them to make, that is one of the priorities in 2020, to take over from the Ministry of Environment, the Department of Environment, those drain sweepers, and we're going to take charge of that and make sure that we do a good job. So you will find things will change come 2020. They are putting together a plan for it right now, and that's what I've asked them to do. Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I will turn to land and housing, and I want to focus on land specifically in my constituency because you hear all kinds of rumors on the street. But under my watch, 251 persons in my constituency have benefited from land distribution by the land sales unit. 251 persons. That has nothing to do with those who have gotten from NHC, if they have gotten from NHC. 251 persons benefited. And Madam Deputy Speaker, those who speak loudest, criticizing, have received land, Madam Deputy Speaker, those who speak loudest have received land, but they don't want to build a house. They get land, they give it to somebody else. And I often wonder, why would they do that? You retire from this job in the United States, you come government, you retire, you're an adult person getting pension from overseas and getting pension from St. Kitts, and up to now you want to build a house? You know what I remind me of, Madam Deputy Speaker? There's a difference between a goat and a sheep, you know. When rain falls, a sheep will do like that and just cringe up, you know. But a goat, meh, running all around. Old people either say, I'm going to build a house. But when the rain stop, they want to move house again. Well, there are some people like that. You give them land, they give it away. They wouldn't pay for it. I know one person like that from over in KR, and they got the most mouth in the country. But they say very little. All of what they say is very little to me. So, we have given out land in my constituency, over 251. Housing, man, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm troubled to call out my numbers because my colleagues might get a little upset with me. When you said that Prime Minister, they might get a little upset with me because you're the Minister of Housing. But the truth is, you can't complain for housing in my constituency. How are you going to complain? St. Peter's, 52. That's St. Peter's alone. Kayan, 39. You understand St. Peter's is more than Kayan? St. Peter's is bigger than Kayan, don't you know? Canary has 14. Keys alone, as small as it is, already have 6 and going more. You're talking over 100. So when you hear them on the radio saying 5 and 15, and you know they like to create confusion, so they will say, oh, the Prime Minister got 50 and he only got 10, and he's the Minister of Housing. Prime Minister, I tell you, know, I got twice as much as you.
I know.
Don't worry, I got twice as much as you. Sure. Yes, it is more. The other will shout it. But I'm saying, I might say it in a kind of a jovial joke, but the truth is, in housing alone, Constituency 8 lead the way, and not just ordinarily lead the way. Let me tell you something, for example. My good friend in the East, right? My good friend in the East. Let me tell you about your housing. If I count up your numbers, you will reach 88. 60 at Wellington Road. We reach it, but that's enough. 60. Another 12, if you count them one bedroom thing that you build up the road, yeah? And another 14. Taylor's area and so on. So if you put them together, it's 88. So you're batting good. You're batting very good. In constituency number 2, member for number 2, Senator and Attorney General, in constituency number 2, 47, you know. 47. This team unity administration batting good when it comes to housing. In number 3, 34. She ain't got enough yet, I want to double it. In number 4, 47. In number 5, 51. In number 6, member for number 6. Member for number 6. You don't get 20. You didn't know that? I'm going to carry you around to show you where they are, man. 20, you don't reach 20? You didn't know? I'll get somebody to take you tomorrow. 20. 2. 20. 20. Huh? Number 7 is at 51.
He said 2. If he thought it was 20, he get 20.
20.
So 200% more.
You need to. I don't think you go around your constituency anymore. You don't go around your constituency anymore. That's the problem. You're not going around your constituency. And the beautiful thing about these houses, Madam Deputy Speaker, they're bigger, they're better, they're stronger. They are fit for kings and queens. These ain't a house where you ain't got no cupboard anymore, you know. These ain't a house where you ain't paint anymore, you know. These ain't a house where you ain't got no tile on the floor anymore, you know. The tiles in these houses mirror those in the best houses in Frigate Bay. Wow. Because NHC imported proper tiles for that. Good quality houses, poor people can't complain. And you hear them talking about, the thing, listen, 2% interest. If your income is below 3,000 a month, 2% interest. Nowhere in the world you will get 2% interest on a house. Nowhere. And if you go to, I think it's 3,500 or 4,000, 3% interest. And if you're up to 5,000, 5% interest. And that is how NHC has been operating. We provide housing to the poor, the indigent, and the middle class. And the interest rate don't pass 5%. Don't pass 5%. Madam Deputy Speaker, I went in one of those houses, right? The two-bedroom one. I think they call it a guava berry or something like that. That kind of nice name. When I saw the cupboards in there, and the quality of the work with the cupboards, you wouldn't think you're in a low-income house. I'm sure you went in one of them already, especially those up the townhouses up there. You go in one of those townhouses, you think those things you see on them counter there is poor people, these are quality housing. Serious quality. Yes. To be admired. And they're all done under the hands of ordinary people in St. Kitts and Nevis, ordinary poor builders. That's who build them. And we have the opposition come talk about middle class. We don't do that. Patches?
Don't do that.
Yeah, we don't do that. Look, I will take you to St. Peter's. If I take you to St. Peter's, you will see a townhouse there, 6 apartments. The 2 apartments on the end got 3 bedrooms. You know why? We consider, long before they ever dreamed of it, that you will have in a home an older person who can't walk up and down them steps all the time. So we put a bedroom on the ground floor so that you could have your old grandmother in the house without having to send her to a home. We don't do that. If you see it, it's like a condo. And that is the model we're taking to West Bastia shortly and to Sandy Point and elsewhere. Because we, though mandated to look more at poor and indigent, we have recognized that the time has come for us to look at those and to build a stronger middle class. So far, Madam Deputy Speaker, 459 under the auspices of NHC. You hear them saying 200? They don't know what they're saying. 459 on the auspices of NHC. The Prime Minister put $30 million in the Development Bank for public servants to benefit from the work of the government. You heard me say earlier, those who have the world goods and see your brothers and sisters in need, show compassion. That's why we put $30 million in Development Bank, so that public servants could go and access. The public servants access the funds from Development Bank. They have built the home. They could get up to $350,000. It was duty-free. It was duty-free.
Yeah.
It's $350,000. And if it's two civil servants, you go up to $450,000, something like that. But with all the concessions allowed to those public servants who access the fund from the Development Bank. On top of that, we've encouraged construction by private sector partners like TDC and others, and Lawrence up at Clico. We encourage that because government ain't supposed to be doing everything for everybody. People have to show their own initiative, and people can. Some people can afford to do their own thing. You don't have to rely on the government. But the government comes in to help those who are not bankable ordinarily. Those who can't access the bank to do what they want to do, the government comes in and does that. So we already providing for this middle class. So this initiative, which is announced as a new initiative of the New Labour, I ain't calling him the next gen. Nothing gen about them.
Next Gen, SKN,
Next
Labour
gen.
Party.
You sound like a commodity.
Next Gen, SKN.
Sound like a commodity.
That's it.
Sound like a commodity. You selling?
Not a commodity.
It sounds so. Sound like a commodity.
The branding of our
I'm saying, you know, rebranding, Mr. Attorney General, rebranding is not the first time that they have adopted that, you know. In 1989,
Next Gen, SKN.
when Pam was in its heyday, and the leader of the opposition became leader of the Labour Party, they discussed changing the name of Labour.
No, sir, never.
And I can find the newspaper with it.
Never.
I can bring the newspaper and show it to you.
The Democratic Party.
Yes, the Labour spokesman.
Come on.
They discussed changing the name.
New Labour is what we will brand it as.
New Labour.
I will brand it.
I'm saying they decided to change the name from Labour. So I'm not surprised that now. So, the point I'm making, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm not surprised that they don't want to say Labour anymore. They have to say Next Gen. Next Gen. They can't say Labour anymore. Next Gen. That's what they want to call it. They're afraid the name Labour.
Labour Party.
It's not the first time they want to rebrand. When in 1989, rebranding, and now you want Next Gen. Man, you're Labour. If you're Labour, you're Labour. Stay on Next Gen Labour. That's what it is. One Next Gen.
Formidable force. Most political organization in the world.
Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker.
More successful.
The point is, Madam Deputy Speaker, that this Team Unity administration has embarked on a program, presented a budget 2019-2020, a budget that offers, that assures us of the inclusion of everyone in society, a budget that welcomes those who are not from St. Kitts, if you're from Guyana, Jamaica. We are here ready to help you to grow in this economy as long as you're here legally. That's all we ask. Be here legally. Don't try to jump to the window. We're not going to be encouraging that. So all those who are here to better the quality of life, to improve the quality of life, then we welcome it. We welcome it because we are growing at a pace which has demands for labor, some of which we are short of because our own people have some of them have migrated to the United States of America. And so we are presenting a budget that shows that we are including everyone in society in our developmental efforts. We are assured in this budget of a hopeful future, debt trending towards zero rather than 200% of GDP. We are assured of a growing middle class, elevating those of us who are poor among us, those who need our help. We have adopted an approach in many ways of a utilitarian style governance, one that does the greatest good for the greatest number of people. That is our approach. We have adopted that approach, and we trust that every single person will recognize that the pie which we share as a Team Unity administration is a pie from which each and every one of us could take a slice. You just take the slice and you multiply. You ensure that you adopt certain ways of living, like thrift. Be thrifty in all your affairs. Be able to put aside for a rainy day. We expect that if you do that, you'll be able to grow as the nation grows and participate in every effort that the government makes. For example, you can participate. None of us are prevented from buying shares on the stock market in the ACSSR. So we can invest. Pay yourself, I will say. It's okay to pay TDC. It's okay to pay households. It's okay to pay Lime and Digital at the same time, but pay yourself. And by paying yourself, I mean putting aside something for a rainy day. We are assured of a government that will make sure that our economy will continue to contend as number one in the region. We are number one, and we will remain number one as we take our countries through 2020 with the budget that we have prepared. We are doing that, ensuring economic growth, looking at digital transformation, continuing to grow our tourist destination, and of course, making sure that our own responsiveness to the less fortunate is something of compassion, a compassionate responsiveness. And once we are able to do that, we can look and we can claim that we're doing the will of our Father. I've said before and I'll say it again. In 2013, leading to 2015, there was a divinity that shaped our ends. That divinity brought us to government. That divinity has shaped our conduct all these 4 years in government. And I said to you, God has not brought us here to leave us now. And so to the people of the country, as we go into 2020, the Team Unity administration presents itself as a government deserving of a second term. And I urge everyone in the country to give Team Unity that second term. I thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.